The biggest thing is when I'm in a shop and nobody knows me and I see somebody putting their hard-earned money down for something I came up with, and I wouldn't say I came up with me and my team that came up with it, there's nothing better. And if that's what you want, you should be an entrepreneur.
This is Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio with your host, Tyler Jorgensen.
Welcome out, everybody. I'm so excited to have you here on Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio. We took a short break, and every time we do this, I'm reminded how much I miss meeting with really cool entrepreneurs and bringing their stories to you. And so today we get to talk with Larry McGearty, who has created Sweet Gwendoline French Gin. And I might even be saying that wrong, but it is one of the coolest brands that I have seen in a long time. So really excited to have you out on the show, Larry. How's your day going so far?
It's good. It's beautiful out. Spring's almost here. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us what's the elevator pitch of what your product and brand is? Why was it unique to the market?
I think, we looked at the marketplace a while ago when I was looking at it, and there wasn't anything that sat on the shelf that was provocative, that had not sort of slipped into the same mainstream of all brown spirits or what gins are supposed to look like, or even tequilas. They sort of follow a formula. And I've been in the biz for about 25 years on the other side, on the advertising side, coming up with brands and stuff. And I always wanted to do this. I have an obsession with the French culture. I think that's where great stuff comes from. And this was someone I was obsessed with. His name is John Willie. He had a magazine called Bazaar in the 40s and 50s. And I was sort of the godfather of fetish. And I've been collecting that since probably too young. And he used humor as sort of a way to get through to this, because at that time, I think he was arrested a couple of times for putting stuff through the mail. At that time, it was super conservative. So This was a little bit of an homage to him and his artwork and his beliefs. And I think there's a community of people, and I'm not just talking about people that live fetish every day, but people that are interested in those things and the stories. And we're all voyeurs at some point. And we wanted to create a gin that was sort of could break through as well. I think, a lot of the gins out there right now are real juniper forward kind of stuff. And we wanted something that was a little bit more complex, I guess you could say. Ours is, we're infused with fig. And fig has all the different components, like not only sexual components, but, the sort of low sugar, beautiful taste to it. And we infuse it with 5 different ingredients: cardamom, coriander, angelica seed, sweet orange, lemon. But we finish ours with white wine. And all of the product that comes from there, all of our infusions are from the south of France, all around that area. And, the bottle, God, I can talk hours. You're probably bored of it, but I could talk hours about the bottle. The bottle sort of looks like a corset. It's supposed to look that. I designed it off of a 1940s perfume bottle that I had found. And I worked with some great people to help me sort of reimagine John Willie.
What's fascinating is there's a lot of people getting into the alcohol space right now. I think there's almost this celebrity trend of everyone's launching something. And I think it's fantastic. I love entrepreneurship. I love coming up with new brands. I think it's really neat. But usually you have one of two things. You have something that's either a really amazing brand. They've put a lot of energy into the aesthetic of the product. Or you have someone who's a flavor hound and a quality focused person, right? And the product is great, but maybe the brand lacks a little bit. But you put an intense amount of attention to detail into both sides. So you guys source all of your own ingredients. You're not just white labeling a product, right?
No.
And so how do you balance that level of attention to detail with making sure you still ship the product and get things to market?
Yeah, it was complex. I worked with a really great flavorist and team, actually in Mexico, who guided me through this. I've worked on other brands. I was part of the creative team with Sailor Jerry and learned a lot, but to actually immerse yourself in it and get geeked out on it. Because listen, anyone can make something really beautiful, but if it doesn't deliver on the inside, it doesn't matter. And even if it delivers on the inside, but you don't tell a story with it on the outside, people don't know how to interact with that. Do you know what I mean? So it was super important for us to do both and to put something out there. Listen, we do this because we love to make things. If I could do a lot of other things in my life, but I do this because I love brands, but I also love the product in there, and I love to see people react to that idea. You know what I mean? Because you don't know when you're putting it out there. You don't know. And I think we really wanted to make sure the product stood up as much as the bottle and told a story in itself.
Yeah. And so speaking of stories, I mean, you're evoking a lot of these past concepts and imagery from the 40s of French culture and everything that you've been saying. But then you're also partnering with people who are very relevant, like Dita Von Teese, right? And so how are you finding those kind of collaborations, and what advice do you have for other people who are trying to connect into the current audiences?
Yeah, and I've known Dita for 25 years. I started my life as an entrepreneur. I had a clothing line, a vintage inspired clothing line, and I actually had a couple of T-shirts that were Bazaar related, the magazine. And Dita was a model at the time buying my samples. So it was only right. And her whole aesthetic was based on John Willie. So we shared that. And I think that's the key. You have to share with whoever you're working with, you have to share a passion of something. And, Dita's an amazing woman. She's not just a burlesque dancer or a model. She's an amazing creative. She's a strong, businesswoman. And I think, while she is a celebrity, if you would, we don't sort of play that angle because she's a partner. And it's very different. She has a lot to say about it. We talk about the different aspects of this brand, even how we talk to an audience. It's important. And those details too. You might always look at the bottle and look at the liquid, but the details of how you're presenting that in every aspect, especially today, in today's world, you have to be pretty specific about what you believe in and how you're going to express that. That's not appropriation. Like, we're not here to appropriate John Willie. I'm a believer and a lover, and we make sure that our audience also understands that and support those people that live a lifestyle, but also the people who want to just have a great gin. So, sort of, I think things have to have a story. They have to have a meaning behind them.
I'm noticing that's a really consistent thing, and even the cocktails that you guys create have stories, and the names evoke a story, and I think it's really great. To me, storytelling is a huge part of marketing. What was it that got you to say, "Hey, I've done all of these other entrepreneur ventures, but gin is what I want to do"?
You know what? I've had this idea for about 10 years, and I thought there's a big gap in the market, I think, for a audience that's not spoken to. It was just time. You know where it came from? I was afraid I wasn't going to do it. It was just time. I think I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I've taken that everywhere I've gone. And it was time for us to do it again before I regretted it. I don't believe in regrets,
Yeah. So you felt kind of called to do it, and you were like, I'm not going to get this far and not do it.
Yeah, and not do it right.
Yeah.
Not do it right. I mean, like you said before, packaging can be beautiful, the message can be perfect, but if people can't experience it, can't like touch it and feel it and play with it, the bartending community has just grabbed us up. And really, we're a vehicle for them to come back and experiment and play with it, and they're the ones who make this come to life. Like you said, we have we have some fun names, but one of the great bartenders came up with a take on the last word called the safe word, and it's like one of our best products. But I couldn't have thought of that.
Yeah. And that's what's fantastic when the community gets involved in the creation and storytelling as well. It's a group effort.
Yeah.
What as you were going along and getting this started, what was one of the first and biggest challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome it?
I think the biggest challenge was, so I came from the advertising side, and you're like, here's an idea, produce it.
Yeah.
And the biggest part were sort of figuring out all the aspects of supply chain, production, cost structure, costing a product. How much do you sell it for? Where do you like that knowledge? I don't know that I could have gained it by somebody telling me because it's so variable. You know,
Oh
you're
yeah.
dealing with so many different people. I think that was the biggest hurdle on time, if you know what I mean. You know, you ever talk to anybody who works with me, I'm always like, let's go. I'm on to the next, da, da, da. But making sure, and details, it's funny we keep talking about details. Understanding those details, let me tell you, can make and break a company. So I think that was my biggest sort of hurdle in the beginning was expectations, you know,
Yeah.
of like, oh, an idea, you make it. No, an idea, and you have to go through a myriad of different and decisions along the way.
Yeah.
Gin, were we going to do gin? At one point, I was like hooked on eau de vie, but then somebody smacked me and said, nobody knows even what eau de vie is.
So along the way, right? Like when you were just in advertising or in other parts and you only owned one part of the supply chain or one part of the marketing machine, going now having to own all of that from ideation to testing to manufacturing to marketing and sales, making sure you have enough margin. All now
Raising
you're
money.
all oh yeah, capital raise, all of those
Oh my
things,
God.
right?
Yeah, that's my
You,
new one I'm learning.
yeah. And so there's all of these different things. So with all of this in mind, you're a few years into it now, you're seeing some success. What advice would you have for somebody who's just getting started?
Listen, everybody's got to follow their dream. Like, I hate to be that guy, but it's true. If you don't put it out there, you don't put an idea out there that you believe is right, then it's a loss. It's a loss for everybody. It's a loss for yourself. I think you have to be prepared for, if you're going to be in this business, I would say, you have to be prepared for the costs. You have to be prepared for the time, and you have to be prepared to be able to maneuver,
Mm-hmm.
right? This isn't a linear path. And I don't know that anything is, quite frankly. I think you've got to put the right people around you that really believe in you. And I always tell everybody
Yeah.
this: know what you're good at, but more importantly, know what you're not good at, and put those people together with you. Because I think I've seen, even, working with other people outside that have their own stuff, they think they can do it all
Right.
and then get caught, right? You become the bottleneck. And I'll be honest, even in the beginning, I'm, a bit of a control freak. I got us into a couple of bottlenecks because there's only so much of me. And
Yeah.
I need to know what I'm good at. I'm the idea guy. That's what I love. I love people. Honestly, the biggest thing is when I'm in a shop and nobody knows me and I see somebody putting their hard-earned money down for something I came up with, and I wouldn't say I came up with me and my team that came up with it, there's nothing better. And if that's what you want, like you should be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I think that we're finally getting to a stage of the business landscape where that idea that you shared of know what you're good at, but really know what you're not good at, and then hire people around that, build a team around that, is becoming more and more commonplace. For years, there was this idea of, well, you got to fix your weaknesses, and now it's almost like, no, embrace your weaknesses, let other people fill those gaps, and go all in on your strengths. And so, as the idea guy and the visionary of the company, how do you what has you most fired up right now? Like, what are you most excited about coming down the pipeline for the business?
It's funny. It's the data. The stuff that I'm learning about, sort of where these pockets of people are, why do they like us? It's all the data that is really super interesting to me, because you look at a big picture, right? And you're like, oh, we sold this many and we're selling some here and some over there. But when you dive into, like, and you start looking at the bar, the neighborhood, the community, what the community needs, what they want, how they're acting, and your place in that community. That's what fires me up. Like, honestly, I've been in the market a lot lately, and the feedback I'm getting and talking to people about it, that's what jazzes me. And especially like now, and especially if they don't like it too, because I need to know, like, what turned you off? Why didn't you do that? So that journey of like really learning, it's putting a baby out in the world and then watching it grow and then learning from it, and that's, I think, sort of lately has been really the exciting part for me, and to start to see is sort of like people say the message back to me without it prompted. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, don't you know this gin? It's blah, 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 blah. And I'm like,
that's cool. So you've got one core product, and people obviously make cocktails and do other things. You're going to continue to grow through increasing distribution and all of these things. Do you have ideas or plans for other products or other things to also bring into the brand?
Yeah, I think, Sweet Gwendoline French Gin and Sweet Gwendoline itself, we really think of it as like a lifestyle brand. So I think what you'll start to see is we start to grow. Dita and I have background in clothing and sort of really creating a sort of whole little world around this. I think that's what would be super interesting to me. We're talking about, other product line that goes within this, but I don't want to be like that traditional person that's like, oh, here's Sweet Gwendoline French Gin. Now here's a cherry Sweet Gwendoline. No, I think we want to like build really interesting sort of adjacent stuff. Like we're thinking about a tonic that goes perfect with this. And what are those different tonics that would really bring out this sort of taste feature and things like that. So yeah, more like adjacent and holding Sweet Gwendoline French Gin is sort of the diamond in the jewel setting. Does that make sense?
I think that's smart. Yeah. So instead of, you're not going to water it down by saying it needs a ton of variations. Instead, you can say, hey, this is the right product, but here's other things that you can accent or customize it your way. I think that's smart. And it kind of honors that the product was right from the beginning.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah.
I want you to like zoom way back. Like, when was the moment in your life where you realized that you were an entrepreneur?
Okay. You want the Larry story. I went to art. I went to art school.
Yeah.
And I was a glass blowing major. And as you know, the market was huge for glass blowers when you come out of that.
How do you even keep up with that demand?
Yeah, it was huge. It's huge. I got a job one summer working on the stock exchange as a runner. Don't ask me how. An aunt got me in. I was, I had to grow out my mohawk, all that kind of stuff. And
had to battle all the other glass blowers for that position.
Yeah, exactly. It was a tough one. It was exciting. It was Wolf of Wall Street. I was there during that time, and I made most of my money playing pinochle, to tell you the truth, in between trades and running and stuff. But I came out of that, and my roommate from college finished his 5th year in school, and he was a printmaker. And we decided to create our own t-shirt printing design business. And that was it. So I was just turned 21. So I never had a real job. I was a bartender my whole life, but I was an entrepreneur from day one. It was getting back into the real world when I turned 30. That was the difference.
That was the hard, And so you came back into the quote real world, but eventually you're back out doing your own thing again.
You don't lose it. It's inside. It's not. There's a breed of us that are entrepreneurs, and it's a calling. It's a calling.
So along that way, did you have mentors or role models?
Yeah, I had great people along. In the very beginning, I was a knucklehead. And I was a knucklehead, and I thought I knew everything, and we did very well with it. We hit sort of the clothing line was called Retroactive, and Urban Outfitters was based in Philadelphia, and we sold there. And this is when Japan was buying. So we were doing really well. And I was spending money like a college kid. So what I did, there was this guy, Sam, who's actually owned a big t-shirt printing company. And he was the one who sort of pulled me aside and said, yo, you're doing really well, but you're not managing yourself correctly. He was really good because he was the first guy to give me credit, which is a big deal when you're 23 years old, you know, and driving around in a 1967 Buick Skylark with dual exhaust.
So he not only saw and believed in you, right? He gave you credit, you know, probably before you were worthy of it.
Oh my God! Yeah.
But then he also was like, "Hey, I see the good in you, but I also see like you got to make some adjustments if you want this to have some runway."
Yeah. And I respected him enough to listen to him because he was nice to me, because he trusted me. I could trust back in him. And I think I've hit along the way many people like that. You know, there's Elwood Gladstone and people of that sort that helped me when they were at you know, Proximo Spirits, Mark Teasdale, and these people show up along your path and sort of come there when you're most open to receiving stuff like that.
Right.
You know, and my hope is to sort of pass that down too. That would be my hope.
So you've received a lot of great advice from role models and mentors. When you run across someone who's a little bit further behind, what's your advice to them?
Yeah, I think it depends on what they're going through. You sort of have to, because it's not general, right?
No.
I think the big general thing is we're stressed out all the time. My biggest thing is if you want to be an entrepreneur, don't expect to not work 60 hours a week. But you're working 60 hours a week on something that's yours and that you love. It's just part of the deal. It's like, you know, it's your baby. You've got to nourish it, you know, and you've got to be a part and you got to look at everything. And, you know, I might not be Tyler, I might not be the best guy. I told you I'm a little obsessive.
Hey, that's all right. I was going to ask, like, what's your take on work-life balance as an entrepreneur?
Like I told you, I fucking love what I do, so it's not work to me. I mean, it's like what the old timers used to say. If it's, I forget what the thing is, but you know, it's not work if you love what you're doing.
Sure,
it's kind of true. You know, I surf. I go down to the beach. I take time for myself to make sure that you know, you have to enjoy the ride, or then it's just another business, and I can go do that anywhere. So I get to make that I love that's mine. I get to travel around and sell it to people. I get to watch them drink it and enjoy it, and I get to work with fabulous people. I mean, what else do you want in the world? That's what life's about. It's not the end goal; it's the journey.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. You clearly are enjoying the journey, and that's what makes it exciting and fun for you. Again, I think your product and your branding is some of the best that I've seen in a long time. I love branding. I love the storytelling that you're doing with that. You know, and you clearly have put a lot of passion into it. How do you handle it when you see people who just don't seem to be caring as much when they're launching products?
Should I tell you the truth?
Yeah, tell me.
I want to go and strangle people. There's like you're choking out other people that could go and do it, is what I think. Like you're wasting precious eyeballs. You're wasting people's time if you don't give a. You just are.
So you're taking up shelf space. You're taking up your ear space from other pitches.
It's about money at the end of the day for many people, and I get that. And listen, I'm not doing this for free, right? We all want to. I'm selling this. I'm not giving it away in the corner, but there's a lot of out there. I think everybody thinks they can do it, and they take a short path to that, and you get a lot because of that.
Yeah, I think that's true. There's a lot of people taking shortcuts. They don't care as much about the journey, right? They're looking just to try to get to the outcome. But again, you can tell in your brand that that you care. What are your big goals for the next couple of years with the brand?
Well, I think the big goal is to not go wide but go deep. Make sure I'm supporting the places that supported us and make a real difference. We want to support the culture. We're about diversity. We're about all of those things. So we want to live those values instead of just talk about them. And I think we want to get to Europe. I think we want to get to Europe. I think Dita just announced today that she's going to be doing a show in in London, a residency, and we think we're perfect for that. I want to be in Berlin. I want to be in all the places that were had a sense of delight and bewitchment, which is what's on our bottle. Berlin and Paris and Tokyo and that kind of sort of expansion. So that's what we're looking. But I think we want to concentrate on getting it right here and making sure it's tight and learn. Yeah.
As you guys have been growing, domestic, what have been some of your big breaks? Like, was there a distributor that picked you up early?
That was our big break. Our big break was with Frederick Wildman, who took us on right away. And, I thought that's how it worked with everyone. But as I look back, it was like, that was our big break. Frederick, and they've been great. They handle chartreuse, which I love. So they have that sort of background. It pairs so well with our brand. It's a little of the other side, right? Monks and Sweet Gwendoline. It's kind of an interesting combo. And they've been great to us. So I think that was our big break, quite frankly, really.
That's awesome.
And working with this crew down in Mexico, that really had been lovely and helpful to me. They are the people behind Nixta and a couple of other brands, and I met them through working, and they're Moy from them is probably the other guy who's Moy and Danny are the two guys that just sort of really took care of me in the process of making this brand and giving me really great advice.
Now, I know you love to work. The journey is is your destination, but I am a big believer that we do these kind of things. We take these kind of risks because we want a lifestyle that we can only get from chasing our own pursuits and passions. What is one item on your personal bucket list you're going to accomplish in the next 12 months?
Boy, going to rip those two apart. So I'm a surfer. My hope is when I retire, and I'll never really retire, when I scale back, is to surf all the great beaches in the world. And I'm a terrible surfer, quite frankly, right? Just so you know. So
it's about the journey again. Not
I think my personal thing is to really get comfortable on a wave this year. And I hurt my back. I had surgery. I lost a season, but 2 years ago, the last wave of the season, I had a perfect ride. And I can't tell you what that feeling is like. It is unbelievable. And not only that, I wasn't alone. Like some people are like, oh, that if I can get that feeling again, I might not even.
All right. So let's say tomorrow morning you could wake up on any beach in the world. Which beach would it be?
Probably Costa Rica right now, because there's a great break there that I've always wanted to surf. That's more my style. I'm a longboarder. So cool. Probably and I love Costa Rica.
I love it. Awesome. Well, Larry, it's been great chatting with you and getting to know you. For all of my biz ninjas out there, please go check out Sweet Gwendoline French Gin. It's on all the socials and the internets and all those wonderful places, and make sure to support them and ask for them at your local bar. But Larry, absolute pleasure. And to all my biz ninjas, wherever you're listening, watching, or streaming, it's your turn to go out and do something.